Spiritual Ministration, Chapter 6. Some Tapasvin Disciples. Whereas a guru can show the path leading to liberation, attainment in the spiritual realm is directly dependent on the earnestness and resolution with which the disciple carries out the instructions of the guru, and to the extent to which he exerts himself to attain realization. It is true that success on the spiritual path depends on the grace of the guru, but this grace is ever present and ever flowing. It is for the disciple to make himself worthy of receiving this grace, and this is done through sadhana or spiritual practice. The more sincerely and earnestly a disciple strives, the more strongly will the Guru's grace manifest itself and carry him forward. Therefore, though Sri Sivabalayogi Maharaj has initiated lakhs of people into dhyana, what each one attains is dependent on how each one of them strives. That the grace of Sri Swamiji enables a sincere sadhaka to attain the goal of his sadhana is beyond doubt. This is amply illustrated by the lives and strivings of some of Sri Swamiji's Tapasvin disciples. These lives are briefly narrated in this chapter. Bikini Saraswati Amma. Bikini Saraswati Amma is the daughter of Bikini Venkatratnam, a resident of Singurakshan village in the East Godavari district of Andhra Pradesh. His father used to come regularly to the Adivarapupeta ashram and participate in the kirtan at Sri Swamiji's ashram. On one such occasion, Saraswati Amma requested her father to take her along for Sri Swamiji's darshan, and the father readily agreed. This initial darshan of Sri Swamiji had a profound effect upon the girl. Immediately following the darshan, both the father and the daughter participated in the kirtan that was going on in the ashram. During the course of the kirtan, Saraswati Amma got Hanuman Baba and passed slowly into deep Baba Samadhi. From that day onward, Saraswati Amma used to be in a state of continuous Baba all 24 hours of the day. The continuous state of Baba being experienced by Saraswati Amma was an indication of her spiritual propensity, and so Sri Swamiji decided to initiate her into dhyana with a view of making her sit for tapas. On the 19th of May 1962, Sri Swamiji initiated Saraswati Amma and directed her to go to Singurukshan, her native village, and sit there for tapas. At the time of her initiation, Saraswati Amma was approximately 14 years old. In accordance with Sri Swamiji's instructions, Saraswati Amma returned to her native village and sat there for tapas. By the grace of her Guru, she soon reached the Samadhi stage. She completed 12 years of tapas on 19th May 1974. Pichya. Pichya was a young man of approximately 20 years of age and belonged to Guntur in Andhra Pradesh. He had made it a regular practice to walk from Guntur to Adivarapupeta every year, a distance of approximately 200 miles, reaching Adivarapupeta about 1 month prior to Mahashivaratri. He then used to whitewash the Dhyana Mandir and get it ready for the annual Shivaratri celebrations. 1 month after Shivaratri, he used to walk back to Guntur. He repeated this routine for a number of years. In 1966, during his annual visit to Adivarapupeta, Pichaya requested a private audience with Sri Swamiji. Accordingly, at 10 p.m. one night, he was allowed a special darshan. During this audience, Pichaya requested Sri Swamiji to make him sit for tapas. Though his eagerness was quite evident, Sri Swamiji wanted to make certain that he also had the spiritual potential for such an undertaking. Consequently, he made him sit in his presence for dhyana to test his fitness. Pichaya apparently passed this test because Sri Swamiji approved of his undertaking tapas. Soon thereafter, Sri Swamiji initiated Pichaya into tapas. He then directed him to go back to his home at Guntur and sit for tapas there. Pichaya left for Guntur the next day, and as he walked along, he found to his joy and wonder that he was being preceded by a jyoti or light. He continued to experience this phenomenon throughout his journey to Guntur. On reaching a place called Sankargunta, which lies in the municipal area of Guntur, Pichaya observed that the Jyoti which had preceded him all the way from Adivarapupeta had stabilized at a particular spot in this area. Taking this to be a divine direction, Pichaya decided to sit for tapas at that very spot. By the grace and blessings of Sri Swamiji, Pichaya made rapid progress and was soon absorbed in continuous samadhi for 24 hours a day. This sudden transformation in Pichaya naturally aroused wonder, not unmixed with disbelief among the local residents. Those who knew Pichaya had always regarded him as a very ordinary youngster, nor had he shown any spiritual propensity so far, which could be interpreted as marking him out for a life of intense spiritual striving, or for the tapas on which he was now engaged. Therefore, it is no wonder that many regarded Pichaya's tapas as an inspired act of gimmickry. Some of those disbelievers, in a foolish attempt to test the genuineness of his spirituality, decided to poison the milk he used to take for his daily nourishment. This happened not once but on a number of occasions. But each time Sri Swamiji came to know of it, and by his grace Pichaya was saved from fatal consequences of the poison. Unfortunately, in 1968, when Sri Swamiji had sat for his 1-year tapas, Pichaya was once again poisoned. This time Sri Swamiji himself was in samadhi, and so the information that Pichaya had been poisoned could not be conveyed to him. Consequently, the poor boy died a victim of the stupidity and malice of some misguided people. Rajmata Revati Devi. On the demise of her husband, the Maharaja of Patiala, Rajmata Revati Devi of the erstwhile Patiala state had moved to Dehradun and had become a permanent resident of this town. Her stepdaughter, Maharani Kailash Kumari Devi of Patna, used to speak to her about Sri Swamiji in glowing terms, as a result of which she felt greatly attracted toward him. When Sri Swamiji visited Dehradun in the month of June 1966, Rajmata Revati Devi went for his darshan and also took dhyana diksha from him. Thereafter she would go daily for darshan and sit for dhyana in Sri Swamiji's presence. One day she got the Nagendra Bhava, and this Bhava became continuous for the entire 24 hours of the day. This was a clear indicator of her spiritual potential, and as the Rajmata was keen to pursue spiritual practices seriously, Sri Swamiji initiated her into tapas in November 1966. From then on, she came to be known as Nagendra Swami. Side note: Nagendra Bhava is Bhava of the Nag, which remains coiled like a garland around the neck of Shiva. Also see chapter 8 for elucidation of Bhava. Continuing on. As a result of the continuous Nagendra Bhava that she experienced, Nagendra Swami soon developed the power of being able to read the mind and thoughts of any person who came before her like an open book. Again, because she remained constantly under the influence of the Bhava, she could not control or restrain her speech. When she met anyone, she would rattle out whatever she saw by the power of her intuition about the person's character, habits, thoughts and activities. This soon became extremely embarrassing for the people concerned, particularly for her relatives, because they found her blurting out in public some of their most personal and closely guarded secrets, as also many of their unsavory private affairs. Therefore, in order to cloak their own exposure and consequent embarrassment, they spread word around that Rajmata Revati Devi had become mentally deranged. On one occasion, some relatives of Nagendra Swami requested Anandamayi Ma to cure the Rajmata of her seeming aberration and took her to the residence of Nagendra Swami for this purpose. As Anandamayi Ma got down from her car, one of the devotees of Sri Swamiji standing nearby got an Nataraja Bhava, and in that Bhava he drew a line across the entrance to the house. By this act, an invisible barrier appears to have been raised, which Anandamayi Ma was unwilling or unable to cross. As she herself could not enter the house, she called out to Nagendra Swami to come out to where she was standing. Nagendra Swami replied that she was in Nagendra Bhava and hence was unable to get up from her seat. She told Anandamayi Ma, "You are known as Jagat Mata. If you truly are Jagat Mata, why don't you come in and take me out of the Nagendra Bhava?" But Anandamayi Ma remained where she was. Quite obviously, she was unable to enter the house, let alone remove the Rajmata's Bhava. Finding herself powerless to intervene in the matter, Anandamayi Ma returned to her own ashram. The following year, when Sri Swamiji again came to Dehradun, he was informed about the power that Nagendra Swami had developed and the embarrassment she was causing to people by openly proclaiming what she intuitively read of their minds and character. In order to put a stop to this, Sri Swamiji directed Nagendra Swami to observe Mauna, or silence. After a year or so of the observance of this Mauna, Sri Swamiji permitted Nagendra Swami to speak again. But Nagendra Swami found the observance of Mauna so beneficial to her sadhana that she decided to continue observing it indefinitely. When Sri Swamiji initiated Nagendra Swami into tapas, he had prescribed for her a rigorous schedule of sadhana. By assiduously following these directions, and as a result of her own spiritual practices, she became totally transformed. Whereas earlier she had been known and feared for her quick temper and sharp tongue, she now exuded an aura of peace. Those who had known her in the days preceding her tapas could hardly recognize the former Rajmata and the saintly and affectionate Nagendra Swami. Her spiritual development proceeded apace, and she was well set to complete the prescribed 12 years of tapas, when suddenly a tragedy struck. On 9th January 1975, word was received at the Sri Sivabalayogi Ashram at Dehradun that Nagendra Swami had been murdered that morning by an unknown assailant. Sri Swamiji had just returned from a tour of Sri Lanka and was at that time in Bangalore when this sad and shocking information was relayed to him. The news of this gruesome murder came as a shock and surprise to all those who heard it. It appeared to be the handiwork of some demented or mentally deranged person, because it was unthinkable that anyone in his right mind would undertake the cold-blooded murder of an old lady who had by now become universally recognized as a saint. The police were unable to trace the murderer, and this heinous crime remains unsolved even to this day. Inscrutable is the play of fate. Satya Sivabalayogi. Satya Narayan is a resident of Kondangi village in the Krishna district of Andhra Pradesh. In early 1965, he came to the Bangalore ashram for darshan of Sri Swamiji and took Dhyana Diksha. He was deeply impressed by his first contact and requested to be allowed to stay in the ashram. His request was granted by Sri Swamiji, and so he stayed on doing odd jobs at the ashram and regularly attending the dhyana classes. By dint of unswerving practice, he started to make good progress in dhyana. After practicing thus for 6 months, Satya Narayan requested Sri Swamiji to initiate him into tapas. Sri Swamiji had been watching his progress, and seeing that he was fit to undertake serious sadhana, Sri Swamiji initiated Satya Narayan into tapas on 7th August 1965. He then directed him to go back to his village and to carry on his sadhana there. Satya Narayan, who is now known as Satya Sivabalayogi, soon attained the Samadhi state and was able to proceed with his tapas undisturbed. By the grace of Sri Swamiji, he successfully completed 12 years of tapas on 7th August 1977. He was raised from tapas by Sri Swamiji on 5th September 1977 and is now doing prachar in accordance with the directions given by Sri Swamiji. Conclusion. Though only a thumb sketch of the lives of the tapasvi disciples of Sri Swamiji has been given in this chapter, these lives adequately exemplify the spiritual benefits that are to be gained by obtaining the Diksha and grace of Sri Swamiji. It will be a source of solace and joy for all serious aspirants in the spiritual path to know that in Sri Sivabalayogi Maharaj they have access to a Sadguru who is munificent in bestowing his blessings and who can ferry them to the further shore of this misery-filled ocean of samsara, the cycle of birth and death.